Three friends boarded Disney's Galactic Starcruiser to seek their destiny and emerged as heroes of the Halcyon.
Bright suns, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Heroes of the Halcyon, the best, and to the best of our knowledge only, Galactic Starcruiser Superfan podcast. I'm Galactic Starcruiser Superfan Christine, and with me are...
Superfan Martin.
And Superfan Drew.
Today we have another amazing episode of the Sublight Circle, but this time with returning guests. These are guests that have been on the Starcruiser at least twice, planning on a third, and they're here to share with us why the second voyage is better than the first. But before we get to that, Martin, tell us a little bit about what you've been working on.
Well, I have been busy indeed, putting up several episodes a week of our original podcast series on YouTube. So if you like to listen to your podcasts on YouTube, our entire catalog of episodes is going to be up on our YouTube channel in the next 2 weeks. But before that, we actually have our very first real video episode that was uploaded just last week. So make sure to check out Heroes of the Halcyon on YouTube for all the exciting content.
And one more quick piece of business before we continue. We wanted to send a thank you to all of our patrons at patreon.com/Heroes of the Halcyon. Your support is very much appreciated, and we're having a blast seeing our Patreon community grow. And you can also leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. That helps other people find our podcast.
And now, let's go to the Sublight Circle. Well, hi, everybody. We're so excited to have you guys back.
Woohoo!
Veterans of the Sublight Circle. Woohoo!
Yeah. It is so fun to see people we've seen before. And again, things maybe that... And it's so good. Let me start that again. Future Drew, I love you. No, I'm sorry, I did that already. It's so good to see familiar faces, and I'm not going to lie. I've been excited to have this episode because I know some of you have held some stories in reserve, so this will be great.
Yeah, everyone in the Sublight Circle today has been on Starcruiser very recently for another voyage. This is the repeat cruisers Sublight Circle.
Patrick, let's start with you. What was exciting about going back? And let's keep spoilers to a minimum in this section. But
Sure.
Patrick, what did you like about, what were you looking forward to when you went back on the ship?
I was looking forward to going back and knowing what the game was. I mean, to simplify things, it's a game. And I had no idea what I was doing that first time. And so to go the second time, understand how your schedule works, understand how the schedule populates, understand that you're going to miss things, like just to know the game going forward, that was a huge plus.
Doesn't it feel like a weight's kind of lifted from your shoulders?
Yeah, you don't feel like you're going to be missing out on anything because you understand that you have to be missing things. I met so many more passengers. I just got to know more people because I was relaxed. I was in the Sublight. I was in the atrium. I was hanging out. I was meeting people. When people were confused, they would come to me and I would try to figure out an in-world way to not spoil it, but help them along. And I learned from, I know, Martin, you talked about Belle before.
Oh, fantastic.
I gave Belle agreeably. I made one specifically for her.
Nice.
Every now and then I would hand passengers off to her like, hey, I don't know how to explain this without giving it away. You want to take this one?
And I'm sure she was like, yeah, I got this, rookie. Move away, please.
Yeah. She would make some joke and push me away. And
It really is amazing how much more relaxed most people are for their second voyage. And it's almost counterintuitive because you know everything going on. You'd think you'd be like, go, but you're not. At least I wasn't. And Patrick, I agree with you. I was so much more chill because I understood the game. I talked with more people, just passengers. And that's a lot of the fun right there. A lot of people, they focus so much on the cast and the crew that they don't talk to the other people on the voyage. And that's just a treasure trove of awesomeness waiting if you take the time to unlock it. So completely agree with you.
The only time I wasn't relaxed was when I was in the room.
I could be doing something else. There's something else going on. What's going on? It's 3:00 in the morning. That doesn't matter. I could go take a tour of the ship. So Dee, how about you? What were you excited about when you went on the ship again?
This was our second trip. We were with Jess. Our trip was the 8th, 9th, and the 10th of this month, so of February. So we are fresh off the boat.
Really fresh. That's awesome.
We had my in-laws. It was basically their first time and their last. This is their last trip. Health reasons wise, it's not feasible for them to travel and do things like this anymore. So we pushed this from 2025 to now, and so we had our son and his wife and daughter from Pennsylvania come down, and then we had our daughter and her eldest and her daughter join us, and then our youngest daughter and grandson also joined us. So we had 11 total. It was like hurting a lot of things because we had a lot of things in play at the time, but it was actually really awesome to see how our kids got into the play. We told them some things. If they wanted to learn more, they saw the videos or whatever and did their research. And we strategically placed them in certain times to say, okay, this is the best place to observe this. But everybody had an awesome time.
Oh, that's great.
How
That's
meaningful.
fantastic.
I mean, for some folks, it's their last trip. And to be able to see, this trip through the eyes of the children that were there and to see them have fun and explore and just their imaginations go, I bet that was an incredibly meaningful thing.
It really was. It really was. And our granddaughter's kindergarten. And so, my daughter had to ask permission for her to have excused absences for this trip. And his principal said, okay, you can write down, do a portfolio or a PowerPoint or whatever to explain the whole thing when you get back. Well, we were rushing to get things together. We came home on Sunday and she had to be at school on Monday. And so we're working on this. And she turned it in. And my daughter said that he said this was the most thorough portfolio presentation that they have ever seen from a student. I said, she worked hard on it, But no, it was really to see it through their eyes. And she was working hand in hand with Captain Keevan and with Lenka Mock. And she knew all the characters, and she thoroughly still believes that we went into space.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Yes,
well,
yes.
you did, because you did.
We did.
Right, exactly. Come on.
Starcruiser really is something that one of the first feelings that I had that was, you get a million emotions when you walk off the ship, just hitting you at once. The ones that just really resonated was, I can't believe that I lived to see this, that this was possible. You try to tell the kindergarten me that they would get to do this, and you wouldn't even have words to describe it.
Yeah, now your kindergarten granddaughter knows that Starcruiser does exist and will never know the magic of looking through a card catalog. So, you've got all that happening for them. That's great. So, Jess, I have two questions for you. One, I want to hear about your trip. But second, I need to know if you ate alone with Sandro again.
Oh, my God, I didn't. Well, this time my sister actually did make it. So I got to eat with her and then just a bunch of lovely people that I met. But before we get into more questions, I have to give Dee's granddaughter, Ariana, a shout out because she was one of the unofficial all-stars of this trip. Yeah, she was so into it. So again, on the last time I said, it's one of the highlights for me was just watching it through other people's eyes, specifically little kids. And she was so into it. So because we were on different sides, of alliances. It's I just got such a kick out of her, side-eyeing me and being oh, she works with this person. Don't trust her. And there was one thing that she did that we'll get into the spoiler section that I still don't even know if Dee knows that she did. And so I think it would break her heart if she knew what she smuggled on board. But it was something that I was supposed to smuggle on board. But when I saw her, I was give it to her. So then that way I could really get the last lap,
Oh,
but
that's great.
It was all in such fun. So no Sandro this time. Actually, he was the one that I interacted with the least.
Okay.
I actually had a lot of interaction with him, it was actually nice because when he first came on, I said, Sandro. Oh, he said, you know me? I said, yes, I know you and I know your music. And he says, well, how do you know this? Is it my beats? I said, I just know things and I just can't say how I know. I just know
great.
things.
That's good.
Thought I put my foot in my mouth for that. Right back out of this one.
Well, it's good. You just sensed that he's a musical being. That just happens.
Hey, that's
Obviously.
the guitar tipped you off.
Yeah.
But just going back to you, what did you, when you got on board, what were you excited about seeing when you went on that voyage again?
Well, sort of what Patrick said, it's like the first time that I went, it's like and I still think it's like, I agree with Martin 100% whenever he like talks about how it's really hard to learn how to play. I don't think that Disney has figured out like a way to like really cue in people that like aren't hard into like the Reddit boards or the Facebook groups on like how to play this game, because it is a game. So the first voyage, it's like, you guys know, it's like I wanted to know a little bit, but I didn't want like any spoilers. And so one of the benefits of that was, learning all these surprises. But one of the drawbacks is I felt like I left a lot of activities and a lot of things on the table. And this time I did like a completely 180. And my philosophy was like, I want to do it all. I'm going to say yes to everybody. And I'm going to see, because the last time I was very conservative. Like I knew I wanted to go first order hardcore. And so I didn't know if I said yes to other people, if then like Croy would find out and then I would be like blocked and then not get to do any activities. So this time I'm like, okay, let me see how far I could push it. And let me see if I could find a story way to be able to do that story wise too and make it make sense. So I like tried to become like a double agent. So that was like the goal. And yeah, so it's like, there was like, I think like 3 things in my mind that I knew I wanted to do. Like I knew I wanted to do some of the forest path, because the last time too, I think, and we'll talk about this with like, if we do end up talking about like things that have changed on like changes from voyage 1 to voyage 2.
And we will.
Yes. Like Saja wise, like, especially that's one of the things that I think that it made it, the cast and crew made it a lot easier to access with the way that they're doing this now. But I definitely knew I wanted to follow the forest path all the way through. And then I was like, okay, like, I think I'll do, because you guys like totally sold me on like Wraith. Last time I didn't even like talk to him like at all. Like it's like he like said hi to me once, and like whenever like on the data pad, because it's like immediately I went into like engineering, which you guys like talked about, like there's some ways to like get the story moving. And so he was like instantly messaged me. I'm like, no, because I, wanted to stay like loyal to Croy. And in person too, he tried to talk to me. I'm like, get away. Like, I don't want to talk to you. And so this time I was like, okay, I want to do some of the stuff, because like listening to what you guys had said, I'm like, oh, that sounds so cool. So I did Force and Wraith stuff. And then like I told my sister, I'm like, I like went so hardcore for like First Order. I don't know if I want to do that again. But then it's me. And then I just love Lieutenant Croy so much. And it was a different actor this time. And so it was just a completely different experience. And I was immediately roped in again. So I did 3 and then light on the 4th, since I did sort of was like a double agent, which when we get to like spoilers, like one of the highlights was like getting found out. Like,
you got a shout out, didn't you? Jess, you got a shout out, right?
I got a shout out, which on my birthday, and it was the best shout out ever. And it's like all of my friends, like I put it on my Instagram so you guys could see it. It's like all of my friends are like, it's like the pandemic. And then I don't know anybody that's had like an easy time, like during like this last couple years. And I went through it. And so like, everyone's like, your smile on that was like everything. Like, and that is one of the, like, I think that is like why I love the Starcruiser so much, because like, again, I think it's so easy when you're an adult to forget to play and to, forget to tune into like that sense of wonder and that sense of magic. And when you're there, that's like what it is for like almost 50 hours. And everybody there also believes in it wholeheartedly. Even the people that aren't, as extroverted as I am, it's like the cast and the crew does like a fantastic job to rope people in. I felt like my sister, she's like, you should just like get hired here, because it's like whenever I would see people also that were like shy, I would then rope them into stuff too. And then they would open up and then I'd see them on like doing like different missions and stuff that like I didn't even get to do. So yeah, I just think everybody there is so wholesome and so fun and invested in everybody having a great time. And I've never been anywhere else where it's like that.
Well, for our listeners who just describe something visually, Jess is sitting here, in the Sublight Circle, wearing an engineer's jumpsuit from the Halcyon. It's just awesome. Starcruiser people are the best people.
I think that's what we should just rename the podcast.
Starcruiser people are the best people.
Exactly.
Well, I think it's kind of amazing that 2 things that you said, Jess, that I think is really cool is that during our day to day, we don't give ourselves permission to do anything except for whatever role you're playing at that minute, whether it's, you're at work and that's your role, or where you're with your friends and that's your role, or with your kids and that's your role. It's like, this is my little mask. And whenever you get the opportunity to have other adults tell you it's okay to play, you just don't have a choice. I mean, everything just falls away and you just jump right into it hardcore. And that's why I think the second voyage is so much better than the first, because the first you're still so self-conscious about, am I going to do it wrong? Is everybody really, I don't know. Is my character okay? Is my, all that kind of stuff. And the second voyage, you're like, I'm an ambassador. Like, everybody get out of my way. I got this. You need something, I'll help you. You know what I mean? You just get that energy as soon as you get on board again, like, Chewie, I'm home.
Yep.
Exactly. Like, for me, I started playing in line. So in line, as soon as, the crew members were there, I immediately started talking to them. And that's, again, something that I picked up from like you and like the other guests that have been on. And I was already in character. Like, my character this time was, I'm like a best-selling Coruscant romance novelist. And so I made little postcards, just like 10 of them. You guys have already seen it. So it's like you guys can see it on this. I'll show you Gone with the Wind Due.
Mm-hmm. Which is and so awesome.
I was already I handed one out in line, and the crew member was like, oh my God, Captain Keevan is like such a huge fan. Like, she's in a flip.
Oh, that's great.
On board.
Oh, that's so cool.
Before I even went, just by starting to play in line, it's like, I felt like the game was on.
I think that's one of the biggest tips you can tell someone. If you're really looking to get the maximum character interaction, start before you get on the shuttle.
Yep.
Because let me tell you, every story thread you put down in that security room when you're in the video waiting, that does make it inside. I can tell you. Again, we can't guarantee every single thing every single time, but the story threads that I laid down and you laid down, those made it onto the ship really quick. I
think that they might even search you online or do something, because my day one looked vastly different than my day two, like just the base thing. And it aligned with, because I had been vocal about on my social media of the things that I wanted to do. I was like, I wonder if someone there, the game master, whatever, is listening to some people that are vocal about going and when their voyages, because it was completely different already. Like now I know that there are some things that you have to do on day one to unlock some of the things on day two. And that the base for that, the outline for that was already on my data pad, as soon as I walked in, whereas before it wasn't.
How about you, Patrick? What was your character this time?
So my character this time, so my first time I didn't go with a character. I didn't know. I just wore Jedi robes, and because I thought I was going to be Star Wars nerds. This time I stayed close to home, so I was a terrestrial engineer. I designed structures that interacted with the planet's surface and whatever the living conditions were. So on a, say, aquatic planet like Camino, right? I'm building the superstructures that go down to the planet's actual hard surface. That was my story. When I got to actually dump on a character and get deep, I was doing a punch list inspection on a home, and I heard something screaming at me from a wall. And I live on Naboo. Sorry, that's important. I'm an engineer on Naboo. Sure. And there was a home that was going to be demolished, and an old senatorial home to be demolished. And I found something screaming at me in the wall. When I touched it, it stopped screaming. Put it down, it started screaming. I better keep this on me. I don't know what this is. And eventually it stopped screaming. And I wanted to figure out what it was. And I heard that there were some people on board that could help me out.
Oh, cool. And
that's kind of where I ended. And so the first time that I met with Saja, and I kind of dumped a little bit on them, they're like, so you don't know what that is? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just keeping it on me. They're like, that's a lightsaber. Huh? I'm keeping a dangerous weapon on me at all times? And so that was a fun little moment. But that's how I wanted to get my journey started. I didn't want to do much beyond that. I just wanted a reason to be on the ship.
Yeah, that's awesome. Dee, how about you guys? Did you guys go with new characters or same characters, or what'd you do?
We did. We had new characters again, based on Lothal. The gals are the force sensitive and working with the Lothwolves. The guys, our family ran a profitable transportation company, which we handed over to our son Michael. Our characters worked wonderfully, and Michael used his role as the man running the business and to work with Lieutenant Croy and the Resistance character, because he wanted to keep both sides of the customers happy.
That's great.
Ooh, he's playing God of War here.
Yes. Gotta get in the middle and just give to both sides. That's how it works.
Michael was doing a fantastic job flipping from one to the other, like, okay, which way are you going? And Ariana was getting upset with him at times. You're supposed to be doing this, So, it was lots of fun to see. And we'll see if we switch characters back to our other ones for the next voyage or not. We'll see.
or go completely new, who knows what it's going to be.
Well, tell you what, let's actually dig deep, since this really is the Starcruiser All-Stars here. This is repeat Voyagers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's kind of go around the room and talk about some of the things you noticed that were different from Voyage 1 to Voyage 2. Patrick, you want to start us off?
Let's see. So some of the big things that were different, some of the characters were just played by different actors. That's the first thing, right? But after about 10 minutes, it all melts away and you don't notice, which is cool. But as far as true story differences, I don't really think this is too much of a spoiler at this point, so you guys can do as you wish. But Awani and Sandra weren't really a couple.
Oh,
which
interesting.
Was different. I kind of got a moment with Wani on day 2 in the atrium. So this is like after things should have been starting. And I mentioned something. I hadn't been part of their story, so I just wanted to start a conversation with her. And I said, "Oh, I hear that like you and Sandro a little bit, huh?" And she was like, No. And she like cut me off. I was like, oh.
And then she made gagging noises, which was really weird.
Sandro denied.
Sandro was not a Togruta this time for me. I know that he's like kind of flip-flopped, but on my first voyage, he was Togruta. And then a big thing as far as dining. So I didn't notice that much as far as food being different, but I'm lactose intolerant. And I've had bad experiences telling people about that because they'll assume that I can eat or not eat certain things. And so I miss out. I've learned, don't go to the Sci-Fi drive-in and tell them that you're lactose intolerant. They're going to give you a stale bun, right? Like that's what I'm talking about. But this time, because I had listened to you guys, I knew to just tell them, and I didn't have to guess on any of the food. So first time around, I didn't eat any of those sun butter and jelly things because I thought they were a roll that had like dairy in it. And then I asked the chef, and the chef is like, "Oh no, you can eat those." Like I said, I must have eaten my weight in them.
It's go time. You got to make up them from Voyage 1.
Another thing that was very different was my room. My father-in-law, as I mentioned, my first time, is very gracious in inviting me to go. He wanted a suite this time, so we got a suite, which was actually less comfortable for me.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't get a bunk bed. I was just sleeping on the sofa, but like I didn't really care because just sleeping. And we got a candle. And we got some like snacks and food and stuff. That candle made me cry when I first got home. Like I took it out of my bag and I sniffed it, and I instantly had flashbacks and like teared up. So that was a difference.
You were in the Galaxy class suite, then, or was it the Grand Captain suite?
No, the Galaxy class.
Yeah.
So my father-in-law had the bedroom to himself, and my wife and I split up in the living room.
Okay. So she got the fold down bed and you got the sofa.
I didn't really sleep that much, so
Yeah.
Sure.
It's a sofa in space, so who cares?
Yeah.
Dee, did you notice any differences between Voyage 1 and Voyage 2?
Yes, there were not as many people on this trip as it was last time. Last time it was in early April, so it was very, very packed. This time it was maybe 1/3. It was a lower number than what we had expected, and what I think is awesome about this is the fact that there was so much face-to-face that you could have with the characters, and you weren't feel like you're monopolizing their time, though people might say that Ari was taking a lot of time, but she was into the storyline and such. So I said, you kids have no idea how fortunate you are to be able to have this time with them. That last time we saw people trying to get to them and they could not speak to them as often or as much as they would like to. So that was one big, big, big difference. We also saw, they had different people playing the different characters. There didn't seem to be as many Sajas on this one.
Probably because there's less people, so they probably had to. They might not have had to staff as much.
Yeah.
Just scale them back. Yes. We also did stay in the Grand Captain Suite because we had 8 of us in that room, and then we had my son and his family in a room not too far from us. So that was very nice. And yes, the candle. It's like I'm getting notes of gardenia, of tiare. I was like, okay, I'm trying to figure this one out.
I ordered some Magic Candle Company oils to put in the diffuser, and it's getting me through. It's like 95% of the way.
It's almost there. It's almost there.
It's funny, Drew, there's something you mentioned. That's actually a really interesting point, is that, no matter how many people are on a voyage, they have to have a Captain Keevan, a Wraith Cole, a Gaia, all these. But the Saja, they can kind of modulate depending on, capacity.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Because there's usually one doing lightsaber training, and then there's usually at least one kind of, out and about and roaming and having interactions. So yeah, I could see why they said, "Oh, well, we know what our bookings are, so let's scale it back a bit."
Well, Jess, I can't wait to hear what did you notice difference between Voyage 1 and 2?
Well, they gave us a comic this time in the room. So the Halcyon comic,
nice.
that was awesome because, and I don't know if Dee got the same one or Patrick got one as well. I got number 2. And so that one, because I only have like the full set, like I don't have the individual ones. So that one has some of the like Link Amok and Captain Keevan in it. So I thought that was great. And yes, with the Sajas, like I think now they were easier to interact with. Like you guys mentioned last week how there's like a 10-minute, 15-minute like Ways of the Saja thing. And now it's like for our muster, like all of the Sajas was like assigned like a muster station, which before I think we just had like a Saja and then like crew members.
Okay.
So it was just like, so it's like you got like face-to-face contact with one. And I think that made it, at least for me, easier to then like unlock that story path. Because like last time my muster station was a crew member. I didn't even see the Sajas really last time. And so this one, it's like having that like face-to-face interaction, not only at the muster station, but then with the Ways of the Saja, if you wanted to do it, then it was like easier to like get that story going as well. And it was my birthday. So they gave me chocolates. So I don't have a candle, but I have the chocolates. I should have brought it here to show you guys, but I didn't. They're upstairs and I'm not going to eat them. They're too pretty.
So since you were on the same voyage as Dee, did you notice the difference in population on board the ship from your first voyage as well?
Yeah, like you know how there's like the seating in the Crown of Corellia, like on the sides, like they're elevated on the sides. This time it was just like only the people, like the middle seating area was filled, so there was like no one on the sides. But I sort of liked it that way for like the same reasons that Dee said, because it was just way easier to have that face to face with people, and you didn't feel like exactly what she said, like that you were monopolizing people or having to interrupt conversations, which I hate doing with the characters. So I liked it.
I think it actually compounds on your second trip as well. You have that you're more comfortable. Plus, if there's less people, which there were a ton less people on my trip as well.
Same for you. Okay.
Yeah, a ton less. So you get more face-to-face interaction. But then when you're relaxed and you're getting the interaction, I actually handed off some one-on-ones to people that I could see were like, and like I handed Wraith to somebody. Just like, here you go. And like launched them on this journey. It was great.
You're a better man than I am.
Without spoilers, Patrick, can you talk about how that happened? How were you able to do that handoff?
Okay. Without spoilers, there was an activity going on. And I was told to go into the atrium to be the like tip of the spear and make sure everything was safe. And there was a passenger who I had inkling that she was going first order hard. When I saw her come out of the sublight, I was like, oh, hi. And I like turned her sideways. I didn't want to completely turn her back to what was happening because I don't want to take away from her experience. So she still saw it and reported it. But then Wraith came out of a stage entrance, and to try to distract her, I was like, Wraith, have you met my friend Chet? And just like handed off, and he like started flirting with her. And
that's great.
To be honest, being relaxed and being more just open to it, being able to interact that way, giving more, was actually more rewarding.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments on our second voyage, and we've talked about this in the podcast, but every podcast is somebody's first podcast. So for folks who haven't heard the story before, we happened to have a kid who joined in one of the events, and I said, hey, there's another event that you really should come to. It fits in with what you're talking about. It fits in with your story. And I was able to bring him into another episode that happens late in the voyage, and those who know. And just seeing him experience the event was one of the best parts of the trip, just seeing somebody else kind of go through it and knowing that these neurons are firing in their head and making a lifetime memory was just super cool.
So I know that's one thing that we were very concerned about whenever we were getting ready to go on our second voyage, and that was, but that captain is my captain, and that Sammy's my Sammy, and what if those aren't the same actors? What are we going to do? And we were shocked, similar to what I think you said, Patrick, is that when you do get on board and you start to fall into it again, all that fear kind of flows away. And so to talk a little bit more about maybe a character interaction or a character beat that you had during your first voyage, that when it came up in your second voyage, you were like, oh, okay, yeah, these are still the same people, but they're not the same people. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. So Wraith is probably, I would have to say, if you were to list characters, he has to be among the one or two people that are listed as the leads of this act, this play, whatever it is. You see him more, he has more interaction with people than I think anybody else. His storyline brings more people in than anything else. So I was most worried about him. But when I got a one-on-one with him and he actually like pulls you aside, you can see that, oh no, this guy has the exact same motivations. This is the exact same person that is just saying things a little bit differently. This is going to sound weird and nerdy. Have you guys read Ender's Game and Ender's Shadow?
I've read Ender's Game. I've never read Ender's Shadow.
Ender's Shadow is the exact same story, but from a different character's perspective. Essentially, it's Beowulf and Grendel, right? It's the same story, but from a different person's perspective. And it was the same guy. You're just on a different journey.
That really is something that I really want to kind of encourage and specifically call out to our listeners. Is we have heard repeatedly from folks that, just like we felt a deep sense of loyalty to not the character, but the performer playing the character. And I feel justified in that. But at the same time, the people that are afraid to go back because they'll have someone different, I really want to just put out there across the board, you fall in love with the characters and the performers that are there. Sure, it was odd for a moment that Wraith looked different, sounded different, was different, but I fell in love with the new one.
Sure, and we still feel the same way about Robbie.
Yeah,
our first,
absolutely.
And you truly, like across the board. I mean, we had I'd say half of the cast was new for our second voyage. Right. Kind of going around the room here. What percentage of the cast was new for you both? All three of you.
So let's see. Everybody was new, except for Croy. Croy was the exact same actor. We got Adam. And then I had one Saja, which was the same.
I just love that the Saja's names are kind of plays on their real last names. I love that. That's so cool. So what did you Jess and Dee, did you kind of see the same thing on your cruise? What percentage of the cast was different for you both?
For me, the only person that was the same was Captain Keevan. So I had an entirely different cast, and there was one cast member who he was Wraith, the first time I went. So it was the Gaston, right? His name is Justin. And this time he was one of the Saja, and he was only there like on day 2. And the same thing, it's like my sister, when she was doing the like research and watching videos, it's like she was so set on a cast that like a specific cast that she said, she's like, if we don't get these people, I'm leaving. Like, it's so bad. She's like, because she was so set on these people, you know, and like had already fallen in love with them watching other people's videos. And again, since I went the first order so hard the first time, and I had Adam, who's like, I guess maybe like the most famous for playing Croy. He's so brilliant. And so when I saw the art, we had like a different Croy, and one I had never seen before. And it was, so I was like, okay, like, but he was amazing. And I fell in love. Like like all of them play it's the same character, but they pull on different parts of that character. And so it's like the same, but different. And sometimes it's even better. Like I had a better time this time. I mean, I got a freaking shout out, you know, with Croy, like on the ship, we were known as like best friends. That even after the voyage, the Vinny Saja, it's like I think yesterday, like wrote something on my Instagram, like throwing down the gauntlet that like Croy was his best friend, not mine. So like, the story is like still playing. So that's like to like everyone listening who's like so dead set on like getting a different cast. It's like, just lean into it, and it's going to be even better sometimes than the first time.
For me, Captain Keevan and Wraith were identical. They were identical for my very first voyage. Everybody else was new. Sammy, the original Sammy, we had him on the first one. The second one, this Sammy has done a fantastic job. And they're different. You look at them and thinking, this is not the same person, but it's the same character. And that comes through. And it was really nice to see other faces. And I think Keith was kind of hoping we'd see some other faces just to get a different perspective of them. But it's the same role all the way through. And you just kind of, it disappears. They are the person, the character, not the person who was playing the character, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense.
Absolutely.
I really applaud Disney in a big way for giving these performers, the cast, the latitude to really make these characters unique for themselves. Because like, I'm just going to pick Wraith Cole as an example, is, you know, the 2 Wraiths we had, it wasn't just different people saying the same lines. It really, and again, the broad strokes of the characters have to be consistent story-wise.
Sure.
But they really felt like different living, breathing, you know, human beings to me. And I like that.
That's because they were.
Yeah, but I like the fact that Disney gives them the leeway to not just be the same character spouting the exact same lines.
I see what you're saying.
It really did feel like a different interpretation. It's kind of like, you know, let's go back to the play. You know, you go see Macbeth, it's going to be a different person playing the same role a different way every single time. And it's just weird that you have to start thinking about Star Wars in those terms. Same role, different interpretation, you're still going to love it.
So you guys mentioned that these cruises were a little bit smaller than your first cruises because we all went fairly early. So we were, you know, part of the early adopters phase. And of course, Disney's a business. They know they're not going to pack every single cruise. And one of the things that I'm super interested in is the haters out there. And unfortunately, we all know what we're talking about when we talk about the Starcruiser. They're going to say, oh my gosh, it didn't sell out. Clearly it's failing and it's falling apart. But because you guys had such a great experience when it was less people, don't you think maybe you were closer to what Disney kind of had in mind for these all around? Jess, what do you think?
I completely agree. And I mean, it was smaller, but it was still pretty full. So for all the haters, I think they haven't gone on it. So they don't know what it is. I think that Disney still has a marketing issue with it, you know, as like the Star Wars hotel, like that's not at all what it is. It's an experience. And so I think they need to market it that way. And I think that will then maybe lessen the haterdom.
Yeah. Nice. Dee, how about you?
You know, I think those that are saying all the negative things about it either don't understand the passion that we have behind it and say, oh, you know, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of this, a lot of that. Yes, it is. But as I said in the first podcast, that this is a childhood dream come true to be able to experience this And you can't get that just anywhere else. This is just one unique place. There's always going to be someone to say something negative.
Oh, sure.
And you just take it with a grain of salt and just, okay, that's their point of view. This is my point of view. Let's go for it.
You've got the Disney haters and you've got the Star Wars haters, and Starcruiser's the perfect confluence
There's a
of
Venn
both of those
diagram
groups.
of evil, right?
Exactly.
Well, Patrick, what do you think?
Yeah, if I look back at my early cruise versus this one and how much interaction I got to have with characters versus the second voyage, bang for your buck, I got more entertainment on the second one. Mine also didn't have anyone seated on that upper ring of the Crown of Corellia. It was only there in the middle. But I found that to be way more fun. I got to know by like almost first name basis, like almost a quarter of the people on board, because I was that extroverted person that just wanted to hand out credits and glad hand. But it was way more fun because characters knew who I was, just because I stood out among a much smaller number. As I mentioned, like Wraith is a very popular character that pulls people in. There were much less people this time around, so I actually got to be a part of it as opposed to kind of standing on the periphery more.
Well, with the exception of not filling the outer ring, and I'll leave this to the group, whoever wants to answer, did you guys notice any other problems or any negative side effects of not having as many people as your first voyages?
No, none.
None.
Yeah, I got to say, from a business perspective, there's these articles that came out, a couple weeks ago, Disney's having to discount Starcruiser, which is completely bogus because it's not a discount on Starcruiser. It's a discount on other Disney hotels if you stay in conjunction with a Starcruiser cruise.
Which is still a discount, to be clear, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But that actually tells me really clearly that people are going to Starcruiser and not going to Disney World.
Sure.
And that Disney's watching that. It's a statistic because it is a choice. And, if that's happening, then at least the word is getting out that Starcruiser delivers the goods. That message has been clearly put forth to the general public. In my opinion, the people listening to this podcast, all of the podcasters like us that are talking about it, we're the best advertising Disney's got, because we will not shut up about it.
Right. Yes.
I refuse to be silent.
Something like this.
Can't
there's
stop,
no way
won't stop.
There's no way to market something like this. Nobody's ever done it.
Yeah.
So until people actually put video of what it's like out there, there's no way for you to describe what it is.
Yeah,
It's challenging, no question.
I actually have a question for you guys. What do you think about some of the trips that have been canceled in the summer? I can't really figure it out myself.
It doesn't concern me at all from a maintenance standpoint. To me, I mean, with the turnaround time is, there's 2-3 hours between cruises. I mean, really 3 at the most. I mean, they are kicking us out. Literally,
it depends on how many people linger outside because they can't get a cab
they
somewhere.
are brooming us out the door when we leave, and there's 2.5 to 3 hours maximum from the time that the people are out to the next group coming in. Just purely from a maintenance standpoint, they've got to have a couple cruises, I would think, on a regular basis where they just don't have them for a couple days a week so that they can do the bigger, term regular maintenance. I mean, if something if a cabin breaks, of course, they could just not fill that cabin until it gets fixed. But I would just think from a training and maintenance standpoint, it doesn't surprise me that there are periodic cruises that get canceled.
My best guess was that A, maintenance, but B, it would give them an opportunity to test out new story ideas. They could run things without people being on board.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're only doing it for a trip, go ahead, Jess.
That's exactly, like, my sister saw some of the maintenance going on during the times that people were doing like the Batu excursion. So we did see some maintenance happening. So that was one of the things that we talked about that too. And exactly that. I even saw someone that I think was taking notes that was like internal with the company, seeing how the story was unfolding. So I also agree with Patrick. I think that they're going to test like some new things. And I told my sister, I'm like, I bet you one of these cruises, like Bob Iger is just going on board with his family and he doesn't want to be with like the rest of us. Like that's what's happening.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the maintenance is a big part of it. And I like your idea, the story idea. I think that's actually probably pretty close to what's going on. And they clearly chose cruises that hadn't been populated very well. And they actually gave the people that they booted off, they gave those people, they said, hey, we're gonna have to cancel your cruise, but we'd like you to come back another time and we'll give you a 50% discount. So they tried their best to try to get other people, to get them to move over. So they're clearly very motivated to clear those weekends to do whatever it is that they're gonna do.
I write down the dates so that next year when they open up, you can book those dates.
Right.
So that when they cancel them, you get 50% off.
You're seeing that. That's I want to play bingo, and like put every date, get reservations for every single date, and then there's 90 days before. Has this been discounted? No, okay. But,
well, you joke, Martin, but that's what cruisers do for
exactly
regular
what they
cruises. And in my mind, I mean, they even do it on Disney cruises. Now, Disney cruises tend to fill up faster than their competitors, but this is more like regular cruises, if you will, than a Disney cruise. And without going off on a whole tangent, my wife and I were looking for a regular cruise right now it's going to be our 20th anniversary this year. And so we were looking at other cruises. And if I wanted to take one 2 weeks from now, it's really, really cheap. Mind you, I'm going to get an interior crummy room and so forth and so on. But then I looked at the Disney cruise and I looked and compared the prices for the Disney cruise versus regular cruises and saw the premium that the Disney cruise could pick. And that made me go, Disney said, let's just use this model for cruises, but let's plug it in with our premium pricing and so forth and so on. I'm sure that they have a plan for when demand starts going down, as it naturally will, that they'll probably put in the regular discounts like you're talking about, Martin, and there'll be ways for more people to experience this, and everything will be a little different than it is today.
yeah, I mean, Disney's got a playbook, and the discounts are coming. I'm actually kind of surprised they haven't already I mean, who's really gotten a discount? DVC members, and they have to use points.
Yeah,
and let me tell you, the points are in my opinion, the biggest ripoff like out there. So to me, there hasn't actually been a real, honest to goodness Starcruiser discount yet.
Yeah.
They're coming. They got to come. At some point, it's going to institute. But you bring up an interesting point, Patrick, that I kind of want to throw out to the group, that Galactic Starcruiser, it's Groundhog Day. Every time you go, it's the same in-universe day. How do they break out of that to put a new storyline in?
That was one of the things that I actually said in the survey of one of the things that they could do, because they are tied down because of Batu, right? But I think that, since it's between episodes 8 and 9, I think there's still wiggle room in there with new characters. And I think, doesn't Mandalorian sort of take place during that time? I don't know if I'm getting my timelines right, but I think there's ways to do it. I think you can, because you could do different heists, you could do different characters that have to do the coaxium stuff.
I think you hit it right there, Jess, is that to me, timeline wise, they are stuck. But the best way to really make it fresh, new characters. To me, that's the easiest, most cost-effective, non-continuity breaking way that they could do this. But it's just kind of a fascinating topic, is would we be okay with them stepping away from a teeny bit of continuity to make it something that happens a month later? Would we be okay with that? Some people, I guarantee you, would be vehemently against it. Some people would say, I wouldn't even notice. Most people would be in between somewhere. Where do we all stand?
Well, would people even notice if it was a month ahead? I mean, if it was the 276th voyage, that wouldn't interfere with Batu.
Again, really, it'd be kind of hard to say why the Smuggler's Run and the Rise of the Resistance specifically was happening the exact same event 1 month later. But again,
But you'd only notice that we'd notice.
Yeah,
and people maybe who went the day before would notice. But would the people on the Starcruiser, would they notice?
The vast majority of people would have no idea whatsoever. But I can tell you that, continuity, it's a slippery slope. The minute you kind of let it get away from you, how do you put that genie back in the box? But at the same time, you can't let yourself be hamstrung by it, because at some point, Starcruiser's got to evolve.
Sure.
At some point, we've talked to several people that say this is a really expensive thing, and we'll do it again, but we'll do it again
when they change
it. Mm-hmm. So I guarantee you that they've got some kind of plan. They had a plan in place for how they were going to modify it before they even put the first shovel in the ground. And And boy, wouldn't we all like a look at that whiteboard?
So a way that I think they could do it possibly without messing up continuity is just say that CSL has multiple ships. So you could just,
That's
all of the
interesting.
branding is CSL branding, not ship branding. Just like Royal Caribbean and Carnival all have different ships that come out of the same ports. I think that's a way that they could do it, and you just change it.
We could be the guardians of the Galacticon.
You know, on the bridge, I noticed that when you're in Chandrilla and you're just waiting to depart, there's a ton of ships that look almost identical to the Halcyon flying around.
To me, that I have never once considered that possibility. Really, what would have to change? They'd have to swap out a plaque in engineering, and the hyperspace compass would probably have to be modified in some. But really, they could make that a different Starcruiser without a ton of work. So it wouldn't be the Halcyon. That really is a fascinating possibility.
Okay, so let's take a sharp right turn right into spoilers.
Right into spoilers. So people who enjoy our podcast, we enjoy you. But if you don't want to hear spoilers, the next few minutes probably aren't for you.
But make sure to come back after your voyage.
Okay, so let's start with Jess. One spoiler-filled story involving a character.
Well, I guess I have to go with the shout out, right? But leading up to the shout out. So again, since I, when I introduced myself to everybody, and so immediately Sammy tried to rope me into that storyline. And so I think in the first meeting with him, he said something like, oh, we need someone that needs to keep an eye on Lieutenant Croy just to see what he's up to. So I immediately volunteered for that. Right. So then I was like, oh, this is my in. And so I thought I was being super sly, everything. And then it was this was right before everything was going to go down. I was in the hallway when Ray is giving him the tool or whatever he needs to fix I don't know. Cause it's since I don't know a lot of what happens in the full resistance storyline. So I was hiding from Sammy on day 2. Cause I'm oh my God, people already know that Lieutenant Croy's best friends. What if they say something? And so I was hiding from him. And then he saw me cowering behind something. He's well. And I felt so bad because this was just coming out of the holocron thing with Ray. And when I was in there, I just felt so guilty because I'm I'm about to go take over the ship with Croy in 3 minutes. And it's I'm getting all teary eyed over this. She thinks I've been working with the resistance the entire time. And I haven't because of the Sajas, they wrote me into this, and this is how I unlocked it. So I felt so bad. And so I'm running out of there. And then that's when Sammy sees me. He's well, look who it is, Lieutenant Croy's best friend. And I just died laughing because I'm oh my God, they know what's happening. But it also filled me with such a sense of joy of oh my God, yes, people know that I'm his best friend. So I was hoping for that shout out, at the end. And then he gave it, and it was just incredible because it was just so us. I felt he understood me as a person and how self-deprecating I am. So he shouted me out for threatening to murder someone on my birthday for him, which was just incredible. And then I think one of my other favorite moments with him was he told me that when he gets his own ship, he'll make sure that there's a spa on there for me. Since, my whole character was very bougie and, I came from the upper levels of Coruscant or whatever. So I'm he sees me, he really sees me. And it was just so special. But I mean, we could have just an entire episode on all the spoilers. I feel with every character that, I got to interact with, there was those special little moments that I'm oh my God, it feels so real. And I think because I was so comfortable this time that I just let more of myself show through my character. And I think they picked up on that. And then they were able to play back with me and show me a little bit of themselves too.
Well, two questions. One, did you participate in the heist since you paid more attention to Wraith?
I did. And so I did the heist. Me and my sister were on captain's duty. So we had to distract Captain Keevan with Gaia in the Sublight Lounge. So I did do that. I also got to move rocks with the Saja, which was
that's cool,
freaking amazing. The holocron, and then stuff with Croy. And again, since I did so much, this I missed out on because I didn't know. Like there's one of my takeaways is that you could do a lot if you just stay open, but you can't do everything. Like I really wanted to do everything and it's impossible. You can't, because there's just some things that happen at the same time. So when I wouldn't get some of the events on my data pad, the customer service or whoever was at the front desk would just text me and be like, this person wants to see you here. So it's like, I missed some stuff because I was not like, I was on my data pad, but I wasn't checking my text because I told all my friends, do not bother me. Like, I'm not going to answer like any text. So like an hour later, I'm like, holy crap. Like this person like invited me to do one of the finale missions, but I didn't see it, but they couldn't put it on my data pad because it happened at the same time as one of the other events. So then they gave me that option of like, what do you want to do? Do you want to do this or do you want to do that?
Well, the second question was, did you murder somebody on your birthday?
I didn't. I just like I told Lieutenant Croy when he asked, "Oh, like if we do find out like there's any resistance members, like what should we do to them?" I'm like, murder them. Like we need to kill them. Like we just need to like wipe out like all of this. And then I was dying because D, like a lot of people didn't know, and since I was friends like with everyone. Like after D's like, oh my God, I can't believe like, so she didn't even know that I was working with Croy and that I would get like a shout out. So then afterward, people were like coming up to me being like, we can't believe that. Like, it's like, here's like sweet, like innocent Jess. Because I had like, my little lost cat, like stuffed animal, and they had no idea. But some people did that, like, especially like Sammy. And then even after with like Sammy, it's like when Captain Keevan was like saying all this stuff of like, yeah, there's been some people here that have helped us. He just like stood in front of me and was just like doing this. And I was just like, oh God, I feel so bad. And then when they take also Lieutenant Croy out, I was like, oh my God, like I dreamed about getting the shout out, but I didn't think of like the fallout. Like, am I going to have to take an escape pod because like these kids are going to want to kill me? So I quickly made sure that like Wraith vouched for how cool I was. And so me and Sammy actually hugged it out at the end. And yeah, so everything ended well. But I want to know what happens to Croy. Like, where does he go after? So
Sure.
I just love thinking that about Jess in the Holocron finale feeling guilty.
Yeah, sitting there as Yoda's giving these nice, meaningful moments, and you're like, I'm about to betray everyone.
A traitor? You are.
Well, before we, and I can't wait to hear your story, Patrick. You've been saving a D. I want to hear from you as well. But real quick, something you mentioned, Jess, that you can't do everything. When we went on our first voyage back in March of last year, almost a year ago, which is crazy to think about, all of the finale missions, there's several finale bridge missions that happen. There's one for the Resistance, there's one for Wraith, and there's Croy's mission. There was room in every single one of them. So when you have a smaller cruise, did you find that those bridge missions at the end were somewhat empty, Patrick?
Well, so I was in the Wraith bridge finale, and already it was pretty sparse, which surprised me because, as I've mentioned, Wraith is a popular character. And then I didn't actually have anything scheduled, but I couldn't sit in my room. So I just went up into the atrium, and Captain Keevan waved me into her bridge finale.
Yep.
Which is the finale when the red alert goes off.
Uh-huh.
And that bridge finale, it was actually me, my father-in-law, and my wife were the only three people on shields. It's really hard.
Yes, it is really hard.
It's really hard. We tried to do two hands like on each dial, but because you have to press a button to like strengthen your shield, like that left hand instantly went away, and we all went to the inner circle.
I love shields so much.
Oh yeah, that is fun. Yeah.
And so like if we're talking about positives, I got to do everything that I wanted to whenever there was a story event because of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a design choice by Disney, I believe, that they do make it physically impossible to do everything and see everything, because they do not want anyone ever to walk off that Starcruiser thinking their first voyage, I saw it all.
Yeah.
That they can't have that. So they specifically make it so it's just timing-wise impossible to do everything.
Dee, did you see the similar reaction? I know you were on the same cruise as Jess, but did you see kind of that multiple bridge finales maybe weren't as full as they were your first cruise?
Definitely so. That was one thing that Keith and I took away from the first voyage. We said, how we managed to get into that bridge finale was amazing. I said, okay, he said, we need to figure out how to get the family in on this. And it didn't really, there wasn't, I mean, some of the storylines did fall through and some of us had it on there, but not all of us. And then there was some way we could talk. He talked with one of the cast members and we were able to get in on it then and have the entire crew, our crew, get in on the finale itself. It was nice to be able to do that and to see our family experience what we experienced.
Sure.
That you're there and seeing everything, going haywire outside. You're thinking, oh my goodness, we just did this. We just saved the show. And we told the family, you need to hang back. You need to hang back to the back by the bridge in order to see. It's the best view for everything. We did not tell them that the Saja was there.
Sure.
By default, last time I'm on a scooter, so I can't walk a whole fast and anything, and couldn't get up closer because there were so many people out there the first time. I said, but that was all the unveiling of the holocron and everything was right beside me. I said, okay, note to self, remember this for the next time. So I told the kids, hang back here. And because there were 4 of us in scooters, we were all in the very back by those back bridge windows already. And the rest of them were at the seating right by the model of the ship. And we said, stay here, don't move. So, that was nice to have them experience what we experienced. And shout out, Sandra shouted out both myself, my husband, and our grandson, Sean, who was, he's almost 3 years old, but he said the 3 of us welcomed him on the ship. I'm thinking, did we really do all that? I guess we did. That was our little gem.
That's awesome.
Oh, well, I wanted to tell you, Dee, that Ariana was the one that brought back the data tapes for Lieutenant Croy. Like that was what was in her cargo, and she had no idea. And I didn't tell her because I didn't want to ruin it for her. But I'm like, oh my God, she's like helping the wrong side.
So
see what she about that then.
I was gonna say you'll have to tell her and see her reaction. So that'll be good.
I did what?
So Patrick, how about you? You've been teasing a spoiler story for us, so I'm so excited to hear what spoilers your second voyage had.
So I tried to order all of my experiences kind of the same way you guys did with your second voyage. And my number one memory has to be the Jedi finale. I can't actually tell it in depth without getting emotional. And it's because of the people that I was with. And I actually spoke with Asaja about my real family, and then she roped it in. So anyway, but I wanted this to be my number one, but because it doesn't make me cry, it can't be my number one. First night, that experience when I handed off a Wraith experience, once everything calmed down, he put his arm around me and he tried to recruit me to his crew. We kind of both knew. And so we got to play with that. He was like, you know what that is, right? Like, yeah. He's like, you know why I'm here? I'm like, yeah. Will you be a part of my crew and help me? I'm like, hey man, I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt the captain. And he's like, how does it hurt the captain? He actually got offended. It's just an art piece. It's not actually doing anything. And I was like, okay, fine. So he roped me in. So that's how I actually got on his storyline. So I actually made a point of not doing his missions because I truly wanted to do the Jedi path. So I did that mission first. I did the captain and the resistance mission second. But I still got sorted into the Wraith somehow.
Okay.
So I made it back to play in the Sabak tournament. And I was the last person to sit down at a table, and I was seated across from a mom, and next to her was her 8-year-old son who didn't know how to play Sabak. So I showed up to win. I felt really bad about having that point of view. So I kind of took it easy on him, oh no, that can be a practice round. I won't take all your credits now. And then he and his mom started cleaning me out. So I only had 4 credits left. And as you know, you play 3 rounds. And right as the last hand is dealt, no one had looked at their cards yet. Wraith came into the tournament. And I'm going to have to back up a little bit. At dinner the first night, he came around the table and glad-handed everyone.
Yeah.
And because my father-in-law has been a few times, Wraith instantly knew who my father-in-law was and kind of gave us our own little backstory. So then he made a point to memorize our names as well. And so then when we had those moments later, that's kind of why he roped me in. Well, so now we're sitting at the Sabak tournament and he's glad-handing everyone. He just sort of like makes eye contact with me, but doesn't really like make a point of saying hello. And then he did what he calls, he finally came to our table and he did what he calls a Carillion handshake. And he handed me a card.
Okay.
He just handed me a card I didn't know what it was at the time. I just like took it and put it in my pocket and didn't think anything of it. And then I like, oh, that feels like a card. Did he just give me a card? Did he just give me a mission or something? Nope. He gave me a Psylocke.
Oh,
like that's he just gave me a wild card. And I was playing an 8-year-old. I already had a winning hand, so I didn't feel bad cheating and using
Sure.
Psylocke that Wraith had just given me.
Of course, that's how it's supposed to go.
I used a Psylocke that Wraith had given me to beat an 8-year-old, but I wasn't going to use it. I was going to leave it in my pocket. And then the kid went all in, and I was like, "Hey man, you don't need to do that. You don't need to go all in. I only have 4 chips. You have way more than me. You don't have to go all in." And he's like, "No, I want to," which made his mom go all in. So then I was like, "I just need 1, please." And so I took 2 cards and I stacked them on top of each other, so it only looked like I had 1 card. And then I slid the wild card in, and then I took the 1 card and just put it down. I didn't know what it was. I didn't care. And then I won the hand, and I moved on to the final table at the Sabak tournament because Wraith gave me a card. He cheated. Wraith, a character, just helped me cheat.
Oh my gosh.
That's great.
That is amazing.
That is astounding.
I made a point to make sure that I didn't turn this in because it actually is a slightly different card stock than what you can buy on board right now. And then after I won and moved on to the final table, that also gave me an opportunity to give as well. I walked up to the mom and I said, "Hey, may I give your son a gift, a present?" And so I got to walk over and say, hey, no hard feelings, man. And I handed him some credits. Next time you play, here's a little something to sweeten the pot. And like the look on his face was so amazing. So then I had the bridge finale with Wraith. And once he did his whole speech and after we did everything, I like pulled him aside and I was like, "Hey man, did you know that you gave me a wild card to beat a youngling?" And he, without any hesitation, just, "You won, right?"
That is beautiful. That is great.
The character is so perfect.
That's great.
You gave that child a valuable life lesson.
I didn't want to be a jerk and just beat him. But
you're not a jerk. You're a scoundrel.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Oh, you're going to go all in when you don't need to?
Well, here's how it works. We all learn lessons in life, but some of us learn lessons in space.
Yes.
So I actually reached out to the actor who played Wraith, and I was like, "Hey, so a friend of mine is going on a podcast, and if they tell that story, you wouldn't get in trouble, would you?" And he's like, "No, tell away."
Excellent. That's great.
They'll never take him alive.
Yeah, as soon as he met my father-in-law, he goes, "Oh, David, you're part of the syndicate, right?" Like he instantly gave us a backstory.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
That's good.
Very cool.
So let's ask one last kind of group question of everyone is, what did you learn this time that you didn't know on your first voyage? And let's start with you, Jess.
I just, again, like what I learned is like how emotional it could be the second time. I was very worried again, like I was going to be like different because it was different people. But again, it was like, I didn't think it could get better and it did. So it's like what I guess my takeaway is like how badly I want to go back. That is it. And then, I mean, from like a practical standpoint, like answer, it's like, I didn't know that you could get more food if you just wanted it. And so that's the thing. I feel like on this trip, I still left so much food on the table. I did do Spirits of Adventure, which was freaking amazing. But I still haven't had the time to eat anything in the lounge. So that's what I learned. Like, eat as much as you want. You could ask like for more. And then again, like how emotional it could be the second time.
Patrick, what about you?
I learned, I think I'm going to agree with Jess, just how emotional it is, that it's more fun when you share it with the people that you're on board with. The first time I went, almost nobody spoke to other passengers because everyone was kind of in that same overwhelmed, manic state. And I was able to just relax so much that I was able to have a more personal experience. It was phenomenal. Just the relationships that I made. There was a gentleman who he had no desire to be there. He was there because it was his wife's birthday and she loved Star Wars. Her first memory was of seeing Darth Vader. Like when she was 4 years old, that was her first memory is Darth Vader. And so for her 55th or 60th birthday, whatever it was, she was going on Starcruiser and he was coming along for the ride. And on the final day, he and I had a cry because we were in the Jedi finale together. And he was so overwhelmed with how much he loved it. And so I think, again, to kind of stay on the same path, being more relaxed, I had more fun giving experiences than taking an experience. To hand someone off, as I mentioned, to a character or say, hey, you should stand over there, and then see the look on their face. The gentleman who took his special needs son on board, who made it to the Jedi finale. The look on that father's face is, I can't even think about it now. Like the fact that he had a phenomenal time because his son did it made it all better.
I love that so much. We actually just did a card back. One of our Patreons went on a cruise with a special needs child and was going to give this card back that we do as a gift. And apparently, it was like one of the best gifts ever. And how fun this is for so many just people that don't usually get to go to these experiences. But, Dee, what are some lessons that you and Keith learned this time? Take it home.
Well, to really sit back, we knew what was going to be happening, but we wanted to have them experience it in their own ways. And the kids all took somewhat different paths. Michael was doing both sides, and Ari and her mom, Lizzie, were definitely on the Jedi path. My daughter, Janine, was kind of stepping back, and she didn't really want to get looped into anything, but the Saja looped her in at the first day at the muster. She was oh gosh, I can't remember the stage names, but she was doing one of those things.
She was doing the sign. That's great.
Yeah, she was doing the sign, but she is very reserved. And the fact that she was out there doing things and getting involved, it warmed my heart to see her to be able to do something like that. So we were definitely more relaxed, though we were a little higher tension, seeing my father and mother-in-law do these things and experience this, knowing that they are the ones who took my husband and his brothers to go see the movies.
Oh, sure. That's great.
Yeah. And, and I was the only one in my family who was really jumping into it, and I'm Star Wars everything. And my sister said, I don't know why we didn't get into it, but like you did. But I said, well, I was playing with the neighbors' the boys' toys, and they always gave me Leia. And I said, Leia's my gal. But it's just, that was it. To see them experience it and to help them just make these memories for themselves and help us make memories for them.
Yep.
And the real question that you always have to ask yourself when coming off a Starcruiser is, when can I go again? But our next cruise is going to be the big May 3, 4, 5 cruise, the May the 4th Be With You cruise. We are so excited to meet so many folks. Are anyone in the Sublight Circle here going to be going on that cruise?
We will be there. Our 33rd anniversary is actually May 5th.
Oh, that's
So
sensational.
Fantastic.
We have days before with you guys, and then days afterwards that we're going to be there to just relax. Just Keith and myself, and we're going to enjoy the whole trip.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's sensational.
Perfect.
And Patrick, I think I saw your hand up too there.
Yeah, so I didn't think I was actually ever going to be able to make the May 3rd, 4th, and 5th trip. We weren't going to be able to make the budget work. But then my father-in-law on the second night, so at dinner at Captain's table, said, when you get home, go check your calendar and check your vacation. I want you to come. So I'm in.
Oh, that's
That's great.
sensational.
That's great. Now just get your father-in-law to get Jess to go too.
Yes.
I wouldn't mind sleeping on the
Yeah. Well, it is always so fantastic to see you guys, first of all. One thing that we love more than anything about doing this podcast is seeing this community grow. And so to have you guys on again and tell us your stories about your second voyage, hear how excited you are for your third, it makes everything that we do seem so much more important and so much more meaningful to all of us. So thank you so much for joining us again today.
You are Starcruiser superstars.
Yay, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. And yeah, exactly what you said. It's like I feel like I have new friends, and making friends as an adult, is sometimes difficult. And so I'm so grateful to you guys because, yeah, it's like I have new friends now because of you guys, and that's really special. So thank you.
Same. I have to echo the same. I have new real world friends, Belle and Jay. I got to meet in person, and that's like kind of through you guys. So
They are the best.
They
We
are the
absolutely
best.
think the world of them. But thank you so much for taking the time with us
Thanks
again
for
today.
having
We
us.
cannot wait to see you out in the galaxy, and may the stars light your way.
So thanks again to Jess, Patrick, and Dee for joining us for that Sublight Circle. These episodes, I'm telling you, they're my favorite to do. I just love it every single time we do it every month.
I love doing the Sublight Circle because it just reignites all those feelings that you had
Yes.
when you were on Starcruiser.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, we're going to be there again in less than 90 days.
I know.
And the Sublight Circle episodes are consistently some of our top performing episodes.
Yes.
Really, the Heroes of the Halcyon, this is a podcast by Starcruiser superfans for Starcruiser superfans. Really, this podcast is the community. The community is what makes this podcast work.
Yeah, and to have folks on every month and talk about their voyages and talk about some of the topics we talk about, just super, super fun.
And there's never an episode where someone, pretty much everyone, comes in with some idea that we've never thought about, and we think about this all day long.
Way too much.
Yeah.
So if people wanted to find us on the interwebs and perhaps participate in future Sublight Circle episodes, Christine, how would they find us?
Please feel free to email us at here'sthehalcyon@gmail.com. We love getting your stories. We love getting your pictures. We love getting your ideas. So please continue to reach out to us. But you can also find us on Instagram at Heroes of the Halcyon, on Twitter at Halcyon_heroes, and don't forget to subscribe to YouTube at Heroes of the Halcyon, along with joining us on our Patreon page at patreon.com/Heroes of the Halcyon.
Well, it is always fun to shoot the poodoo every week with all the Starcruiser superfans out there. So until next episode, it's our honor. Let's raise our glasses with the Halcyon toast. To
Sublight!